You guys are going to see, like, lots of weird, different hand movements than you're used to tonight.
I've never seen your hands before. I was starting
I'm just, like...
Oh, my God.
I'm extremely aware of my hands.
It's a whole new side of you. This is really thrilling.
Yeah, and I'm about to start. Are you fucking ready?
I was born ready.
I'm ready!
Hello, and welcome to Way Too Broad, a place for friends to talk about things that make them sound crazy. Like trying to do imitations of Nick Kroll characters. I am your co-host, Hannah, and these are my other co-hosts, Erin and Ben. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Hannah, do you always refer to yourself as a co-host? You don't really say host? I feel like that feels weird for you to say co-host.
Do you feel
I don't
weird?
think I think
weird.
I usually just say I'm Hannah.
Oh, okay.
So, it's not as weird.
That's weird.
It's weird, but it's not as weird. Wait.
That's weird.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Ben.
Hi.
Ben, hello.
Hi. Hello. Hello.
Hi, Ben.
Hello.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Erin.
There's only one rule on Way Too Broad, and that rule
What's
is
the
that we
rule?
have to be... If you shut up for a second, I could tell you that the rule is that you have to be excited about the thing that you're talking about. And I'm excited about this thing I just remembered. It's kind of a family inside joke, but just a really quick one that doesn't count, so we can still do another one if we want. This one time... Ben, you might have to correct me, because I might give credit to the wrong person for this.
Okay.
But what I think happened was that Lucas, our middle brother, asked Ben if he wanted some ice cream, and Ben was like, ass cream? And then Lucas was like, no, ice cream. You want ice cream? And Ben was like, he just stared at him for like a couple of beats, and then he was like, I don't want your ass cream, man. And I still think about it like every time anybody says ice cream.
I'm so sorry that you think about Lucas's ass cream every time. It really whets the appetite for some ice cream.
No, it's always like, is this a good moment? Could I make this joke? Could I steal this joke from Ben? Like,
don't you ever do that, like, before you make a joke, like, one of your favorites, you're like, have I told these people, have I said this in front of these people? And sometimes, if I know I've said it in front of one person, but not the other, I'm like, they're a sacrificial lamb, they're hearing it again.
It's just that good.
It's that good.
yes, I do all of that. Homework follow-up. Shall we start there?
I listened to so much Rufus Wainwright today.
Oh, man,
and
yes.
he's so fucking good. I listened to almost all of the best of that you recommended.
Yes.
And his cover of Across the Universe is like
good.
the best I've heard probably ever.
So good. I'm so glad you got into that today, Ben.
Yeah, I'm so sold.
I have a correction follow-up that during that episode when I said his best of album is called Vibrato. It's actually called Vibrate. Which I'm sure vibrato means vibrate in a language.
Italian.
Italian, yeah.
Vibrato!
Well, we were talking a lot about vibrato. I was like really impressed with the happenstance.
I actually remember when, like, because Hannah brought up how much she liked his vibrato, and then, like, after that, you were like, his best of's called vibrato. I was like, wow, he's really proud of it. Like,
I know, and I was like, isn't that weird? And then I was like, that's not right.
it is weird because it's not true.
Yeah.
It's weird. If you consider lies weird, it's weird.
Gentle misleading, I prefer.
I don't know if we have an inside joke.
I have one. That's why I was asking pre-snack because I had one I could offer. So we finished. Molly and I finished Big Mouth, which we just loved, and all that talk about puberty reminded me of my dad when we went through puberty, created a puberty song that he would sing to us when we were having extreme puberty moments.
Oh, no.
Particularly, he liked to do this in public. So I will sing a few verses of the puberty song.
Okay.
Puberty is a time of life when you get some hair in your underwear. Puberty is a time of life when you start to sprout and grow out. I think that's all there was to it. He would probably remember more verses, but that's certainly... I remember that seared into my mind. He would just sing it at us.
Wow.
While we were having puberty. While we were actively puberting. He would just sing that little song.
Puberty.
You heard me.
Alright, I have like one last terminology and that's any good.
Okay.
So I could share that with
I'm
you.
excited. I like those.
I like them too. I'm going to keep trying to collect them. But you guys, I know that I named it after Ian, but you guys could add stuff to this if you have like weird around the house terminology for stuff. That would be fine too. Okay, so this one's weird and I don't know where it came from besides the fact that I know that I said it first, but we both say this now. Instead of referring to the dishwasher, we always, like, I would say probably like 90 to 95% of the time we call it the dick washer.
And you don't know why.
I don't know why. There's no story behind that. It's just
Wow.
it's just like, I think it's more fun to call it a dick washer. I think that's like the whole story. And then he agreed, so that's what we do now.
I hope Ian isn't easily suggestible. One day he's like home alone and he's like, I wonder if it works.
It is what it's called.
I wouldn't be called that if that's not what it was for.
You think I should put like a warning sign on it?
No dicks.
Like, warning, this will not actually wash your dick safely.
I think you should.
Okay.
Or at least a warning not to use like those abrasive detergents if you're going to be doing that.
I have some dumb shit Kylie asked me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
There were like a bunch of these last night while I was reading. So the first one was the start of it where she just said, "What's your middle name?" And then immediately, "Can you spell it backwards?" And then I responded asking her why she needed my middle name, and she looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "I just needed your middle name." And then shortly after asked what my phone number backwards was. And then I'm going to save this one because it's really the best one. So I'm going to skip to, "Hey Ben, how do you feel about turtles?"
What was your answer?
She was trying to... Yeah.
I think I said they were fine. I don't have any strong feelings about turtles.
You're a monster.
Maybe she was trying to get you to reenact that viral video.
I like turtles.
Oh.
I like turtles.
You failed.
I messed up then, if that's what you wanted.
Speaking of, this is kind of related. So a friend of mine told me that she was pregnant one time, and
Was she?
She was actually pregnant. She told me, and I got really excited, and we celebrated. And then afterwards, we realized that we missed a perfectly good movie quoting moment where we could have quoted the movie Juno from that time that she tells her friend that she's pregnant in that movie, and her friend goes, "It's probably a food baby." And so we swore that if she were to become pregnant again, that we would, and she were to tell me, that we would reenact that scene. And then she became pregnant again years later and was like, told me that she's pregnant. And I was like, it's probably a food baby. It was beautiful.
You remembered. That's very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That story had a happy ending.
What's the last one, man?
I have two more.
Oh, okay.
Alright, this one's a long one, so pay attention.
Okay.
How come we have tiny hairs in our ears, and that's what lets us hear sound, but we have tiny hairs in our nose, but our nose can't hear?
That's a really good question.
It's a lot to unpack there.
It's not a good question.
It's a pretty bad question.
I love you, Kylie. That's not a good question, though.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
I mean, just first of all, the assumption that the hairs in our ears is what lets us
that's
hear.
incorrect. Yeah. And then also,
You're
the hairs in
incorrect.
your nose, they help you sense other things. Smells.
Like boogers. Oh.
They help you sense boogers.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do.
Alright, you want the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but just real quick, you know when you squeeze your nose like this? You know when you squeeze your nose? Like, people can tell what I'm doing right now if they can't see. Okay. And then you can feel there's a booger inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that.
That's gross. Yeah,
Is that,
I don't like
is
it.
that it?
I hate
Yeah.
because then you're thinking about it.
Alright, this last one's on the theme of spelling things backwards, but it's probably the most confusing one I've ever got from her. Can you spell the 13 years of the fall of Christ backwards for me?
Oh my god. Kylie needs to reconcile with the library and go get a book to read when they're reading. I appreciate her mind though. I actually respect her because there's all that stuff about like we don't have good ideas anymore as a society because we never let ourselves be bored. Kylie's having some great ideas.
That's true.
That is true.
Noses that can hear, spelling
Bored
stuff
and
backwards.
brilliant.
What if you smelled through your nose and heard through your ears? Wait. What
ifs?
Can you imagine?
What if you smelled through your ears and heard through your nose?
I feel like it would be like mostly the
I know, I
same.
was going to say, like, the sense would just be, you'd just
You're
be
right.
hearing.
You would not hear as well. You wouldn't know what direction things
I mean,
were coming from
headphones
as well.
would be weird
You would,
because
like-
they'd be like nose plugs.
You would like cock your head to the side and be like, "Oh, those brownies smell good," or you would like tip your head up at somebody and be like, "What?" Come again?
That's
You
true.
would, like, cup your
you
nose, come
identified
again?
the only differences. Or like when you were trying to pick good produce at the grocery store, you put your ear up to it.
You'd be like, nah.
As if-
You'd be like, "I can't hear you."
If you wanted to hear the ocean at the beach, you stick your nose in a conch shell. Not at the beach, other places.
If you could hear, what if you heard and smelled out of your nose and you had to shove earbuds up your nose? You'd keep your earbuds real clean.
Wow,
Wait,
where
what
do you
would you-
breathe then?
No,
You
but what
through
would
your
ears
mouth.
be for?
Your
Oh, your
ears,
ears.
your
Are
ears
your-
are a
and the ears just
vestigial
vestigial?
organ. Yeah.
I
They're
think we
decorative,
should
purely decorative.
Optimize the human face and combine the nose and ear into one organ.
Yeah, optimization.
What if you
and then your
ate
voice
through
would
your eyes?
your voice would sound really loud though.
Oh, just put that in there too. Make that the mouth. All of it.
But if you heard
What?
out of your nose, your voice would sound so loud because it's just right there.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
What if you talked out your ears?
Hey, that doesn't make any sense.
Ears don't have lips.
Did you say your ears doesn't have a lips?
Your ears don't have lips.
True. You've really broken this down at the most
Gotcha.
unrealistic point.
Gotcha, Hannah.
Oh my god, I have to tell you this story now. I almost told it to Erin twice because I was like, I could barely hold it back because it was so funny and gross. So
That was a weird pause.
so I was at work and this guy that I work with, he like really likes beer, right? But he also has kids, and so he was saying how if he was a good dad, he would go to the grocery store and get some milk. But instead, he was basically saying, like, instead of doing that, he's going to go get beer. But what he actually said was, but instead I'm going to go get some daddy milk.
Oh, God.
Oh no.
Oh, just the worst.
Yeah. So I was like, so I made the mistake of pointing out how gross that was, what he just said. I was like, that is probably the worst thing I've ever heard. And then, of course, like, everybody that was around got really curious about what he said. And he said it, like, 3 more times.
Oh my god.
That's when you like.
You have to stop.
That's when you like blush and leave and said, "I didn't say anything. I'm not gonna retell that." Oh my god. I had an unfortunate misspeak the other day. I was hanging out. I was going on a walk with a coworker of mine who's a good friend of mine, and he's a dude. And where I was like, "Oh, do you want to go on a walk?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so we're leaving, and I was like, "Oh, I'm glad that we're going on a walk." And what I meant to say was, I really need to stretch my legs. But what I said was, I really need to spread my legs. And then I said that same thing again to a new coworker of mine. I was like, "Oh, it's good to spread your legs." What's wrong with me?
You're gonna get a reputation.
I know. One is like a common term for exercise, and the other is an unfortunate graphic sexual visual.
Oh my god.
That's so good.
Anyway.
Okay. So, Erin, you're up first, unless anybody has any more gross things they said.
Any more
accidentally.
homework recapped, Hannah? Did you do anyone's homework?
I didn't learn to organize a computer. I've already seen Westworld.
I finished Westworld.
I did. Oh, that's right. Oh, hey, Erin.
Hey.
Without giving any spoilers,
Okay.
tell me everything you thought about it.
I loved it. I really liked it. I liked the direction it went in. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to season 2. You know, some shows end and you're like, how is there going to be a season 2? You know,
Yeah.
like Westworld, I was like, as it was kind of unfolding, I was like, how is there going to be a season 2? Because it's like, shows that hinge around a central mystery, that is like the central mystery of the world, it makes you wonder, like, how they're going to build on that. Like, I feel that way with Stranger Things. Like, I'm like, I wonder how season 2 is going to be, because really, like, season 1 was a slow reveal of, like, a specific mystery, which is kind of how Westworld was, but I liked how they left it. I'm like, ooh, I can see, like, how it's going to be really interesting for season 2.
Yeah, and very different, which
Yes.
is exciting. But I also... I am going to watch it through again, I think. I don't know what it is about this show that, like, immediately my mucous membranes just open up. And like, I don't cough all day.
Do you not? Get some fucking lemon water or something. Like a lounge. What do you call this?
A lozenge?
Are you trying to say lozenge?
A longe. I like how you like knew it was 2 syllables, so you kind of like pushed longe into lonja.
That's exactly what happened. I was like, I know it's 2 syllables, but I only remember one of them. So I'm just gonna do a guttural sound for the last one. I hope that's right.
Longe. Ugh.
I did my own homework. I didn't watch Over the Garden Wall again, but I've been listening to the soundtrack on Spotify because it's really good. Really good. Like, even better than I kind of realized watching it. And I also listened to another podcast that was like, Ear Snack, that was like in depth on Over the Garden Wall specifically, called Other People's Trash is Our Treasure, their latest episode. They're part of the Lady Pod Squad, which we're also a part of. Shout out to Lady Pod Squad, they're cool. But they talked about how, like, every and I didn't really notice this, but thinking back, it makes a lot of sense that every sort of adventure that every episode, the characters that they run into are kind of from a different time period in history.
Oh.
Which is interesting too when you like kind of approach it from that perspective. So that's just another like little thing to look out for. if you ever do watch it. But that's all I got. So, Erin, you're up first.
Cool. So my obsession this week, I was so into it that I have already told Hannah and Ben about it. But it's a soundtrack of a musical that came out in, gosh, when was it?
I feel like it was like 2010.
2010, maybe? Something like that, yeah. Called Venice, like the city in Italy. And it's, I heard about it. I was listening to my Show Tunes playlist on Spotify, and then it ended, and then Spotify is doing that thing where they recommend songs to you, and it was playing the song, and it, like, blew my mind. It was so good. And so it's a dystopian hip-hop musical, and so when I found the first song, which is actually the second song on the soundtrack, called Last Man, and it has Leslie.
So good,
such a good song. It has Leslie Odom Jr. in it, and he's just gorgeous. Like, his voice is just gorgeous, and
his face.
He's really just gorgeous. Do you follow him on Instagram? Anybody?
No.
He's gorgeous and has a gorgeous wife, and is like, loves her. It's real sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that now.
But anyway, it was one of those things that I heard it, and I, like, loved it, and I started listening to the soundtrack and was really into it, and thought that if I had heard this before I heard Hamilton, it would, like, I'd be like, this is the best ever! But because I heard Hamilton, I was like, oh, this is pretty chill. And I shared it with a coworker of mine who also enjoyed it, and I shared those thoughts with him, and he was like, yeah, poor everyone who isn't Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I was like, true. So it's one of those things, so I got really into it. I was, like, on fire about it kind of this weekend, the beginning of this week. And you know how you listen to some things? Sometimes you'll listen to something, and there's a period of, like, you like it, but you're not sure how it's going to go. You haven't quite wrapped your mind around it yet. You're not familiar with it yet.
Yeah.
And some things, most things, I think, like, you get familiar with it, and then you're like, okay, maybe this isn't everything I thought it would be. And then some things, like Hamilton, specifically, in my mind, you listen to, and you listen to, and you listen to, and each time it gets better, because you're like, this thing, and this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, unfortunately, the soundtrack for me was kind of in category 1. Like, I still like it, but it doesn't have that holding power that, like, Hamilton, for instance, did for me. But I still really liked it and still would recommend it. Somebody else it has in it is, I'm going to butcher her name, and I'm so sorry.
Uzo Aduba.
Yeah, Uzo Aduba. She is Crazy Eyes on Orange is the New Black.
Oh, I haven't seen Orange is the New Black.
What the fuck,
she's
Ben?
great.
Get your shit together, man!
I honestly didn't know that she could sing, and she's so good.
She's so good. Yeah.
I have to tell you, Erin, that my experience with it has been a little bit different.
Okay.
Obviously, I tried not to get, like, too like, heavy. I listened to it maybe, like, 2 times through, and then I was listening to it today also. And the first time I didn't look up the story, and I thought it took place sometime in history, like in actual Venice. And the second time, before I listened to it again, I looked it up and, like, kind of skimmed through the synopsis, and then I listened to it. And then I kind of stopped for a few days, and like, today and yesterday, several times I've had parts of songs from it stuck in my head, and, like, while it's running in my head, or while I'm, like, humming it, I'm like, oh, this is from Venice, like, because I only listened to it, like, twice.
Yeah.
So that to me is very reminiscent of what happened with Hamilton. I had exactly the same experience as you of, like, being like, oh, okay, I think Lin-Manuel could have done this part better.
Yeah.
That's just an impossible standard for everything, though.
Yeah.
I will say the song Last Man is on par with, like...
So good.
It's so good. Like, I love it. I, like, love it as much as, like, my favorite Hamilton
I just
song.
want to take that, and I like the repeating parts are excellent. I want to take that one segment where he's like, I'll be the last man, and then like that standing when the world collapses, and just like loop that over and over again.
Yep.
For an extra like 3 minutes in the middle, because like the harmonies are so good.
Oh, it's so good.
The way you just sang it.
It is Wonderwall. It's actually Wonderwall.
Is it Wonderwall?
Yeah, that's right.
I really liked the narrator guy, Matt Sachs, and that too. I listened to the whole thing only once through, but he was really, really good.
Yeah.
He was a ghost the whole time, I guess.
Really? I didn't know anything.
His
I didn't,
title is MC Clown.
Interesting.
Yeah. Whatever that means.
I will say, it was I really enjoyed it overall, but it was definitely kind of spotty. I felt like some of the songs, Waited All These Years, the one that comes right after Last Man, was okay. It kind of
well, although that's another one that I got, but it was only a part of it. I agree with you. It starts out and it's a little bit too saccharine almost, and then there's a part closer to the end that I get stuck in my head. I can't remember what it is right now, but that was one of them. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you.
But overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's if Hamilton wasn't in our lives, I would be this is the best thing I've ever heard. Right, but we have Hamilton and we have In the Heights, which are both just so good. I don't know. It's definitely worth a listen. I was really happy to find it. It's one of those things that when you find new music like that. Well, the best I could tell. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The best I could tell. Well, I looked it up on Wikipedia. The best I can remember. The best I can remember from reading it. Just it's a world or a city that has been in civil war for years, and it's complicated.
So it's not historical?
No.
It takes place in a dystopian future.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure, because they reference stuff that happened. And then the name of the city is Venice, but also the name of the main character is Venice.
Oh,
and
yes.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. And he... Go ahead.
Oh, it's his mother... So he was the product of a rape. Of his mother was a prominent figure, and then...
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what kind. If she was a first lady or what.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out either. And then his half-brother is played by Leslie Odom Jr., and they're kind of at odds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leslie Odom Jr. is kind of the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. And Essie isn't Hamilton. Well, that's debatable, but...
Yeah, I would debate that.
Yeah, but. I would not agree with what I just said also, but on the surface, Aaron Burr is the sleazy bad guy.
Wasn't that an episode of Hey Arnold where he was don't fight me, I'll fight me, and hit himself in a trash can?
I would debate that against myself. I have a quick story I wanted to share before I forget. It's that during the height this week of my obsession with it at work, we're kind of in an open office and kind of all seated really close to each other, and I had my volume turned way up, and I pressed play thinking my headphones were plugged in, and they were not, and so Venice just blasted on my speakers, and I fumbled frantically to find my pause button, and eventually did, and then my neighbor was my coworker sitting next to me was what was that? And I was oh, just a dystopian hip-hop musical.
Officers are weird.
Yeah. But then I sent him the link and he was excited, so.
Another thing that happened to me this week that sounds a lot like that in some ways is that I was listening to an episode of Terrible Thanks for Asking, which our cousin Rachel recommended to us.
Shout out to Rachel.
Rachel's
Shout
awesome.
Out, #1 fan.
And I was listening to an episode, I think it was the establishing episode where the woman is talking about why she started the podcast, which is basically she lost her unborn child and then her husband and then her father all in the course of a month or something.
Oh my
so it's
God.
6 weeks. Yeah. And I was crying. I started tearing up at my desk. I wasn't full on crying, or I would not have been at my desk, but I was right in that moment when I was oh shit, I'm tearing up. And this woman came over because she needed something, and I work in a cubicle, so she just got there and and like had a question about work, and I was sitting at my desk like clearly like with a red puffy face because she immediately like her face dropped and she was like, "Are you?" Like she started to come over and try to give me a hug, and I was like, "It's okay. I just was listening to this podcast." Like, she was like, "What?"
That happened to me.
So that was weird.
That happened to me once I was reading that book, Marley and Me, I think, about the dog. You remember that? And I was babysitting, and when I arrived, they were like, "What book is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this book. Apparently it makes everyone cry." I was like, I've never cried at a book. And they come home right as I finish it, and I'm bawling. I'm like, I'm not tearing up. I'm like bawling. And they're like, "Is everything okay? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "It's so sad." Like, but I was like, no spoilers. Anyway.
I feel like with a book about a dog, there's only one reason why it could be that sad.
It's the tragedy of dogs.
It's true.
That you are guaranteed to outlive them. I mean, you're not guaranteed to, really.
I could die tomorrow.
You'll hopefully outlive them. Anyway.
After listening to Venice, I also listened to Leslie Odom Jr.'s solo album that he released recently.
Oh man!
And it's actually it's interesting because it's like all jazz.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's like a really nice, relaxing thing to like listen to while working on other stuff.
I love that song "Good for You."
Yeah.
With Davey Diggs in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so good.
He's the best.
For you.
I'll have to check that out. I did, I see what you did there. I did get my Spotify membership back, so
yes,
I can keep up with you
I
guys.
didn't even know you lost it.
You know what I just remembered is my favorite part of that song that we were just talking about?
Last Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
When he's singing "I'll Be the Last Man" and he's holding the note out, there's like this female voice in the background that's like, "Ah." That's my favorite part.
I like how when they say, when he's singing in that song, sometimes when he's holding the notes out, they sound almost dissonant. It's so good. Just the way the harmony is or something like that.
That's some good shit.
That's good shit.
Good ass shit.
It's good shit.
That's another good song.
Yeah.
Before we go to Ben, I also want to say that if you do nothing else related to Over the Garden Wall this week, you should look up, it's called A Courting Song. And it's a song that somebody sings to the main character. And it's not super important, but when I heard that song, it's all about, like, proposing to your love and, like, getting ready for the wedding and how it creates work for everybody. I know we're going to have so much fun. It's, like, this. It's weird. It's kind of creepy, but it's this, like, old-timey, like, voice, and I've been listening to it constantly. It's only, like, a minute and a half long or less. And I told Ian that if I had known it existed, or if it had existed when we gotten married, that I would have put it on our wedding playlist for sure.
Oh,
it's like
man.
this warbly old man voice. It's really good.
It sounds great. It sounds right up my alley. I love warbly old men voices.
I know that about you.
It actually does sound good. So. Cool. Awesome. Good talk.
Great obsession, Erin.
Yeah, great job, Erin.
Thanks.
So, Ben, it's your turn.
My turn now. My obsession is a book that I finished today.
Yes.
And it's called The Sympathizer. It's by, I'm going to fuck up the name because it's Vietnamese. Viet Thanh Nguyen. The last name's Nguyen. I think that's
I'm pretty sure that's Nguyen.
Nguyen, yeah.
Is it long? Long?
Anything I don't know how to pronounce, I'm just going to say Lonja.
Lonja.
So it's a book about a communist spy at the end of the Vietnam War, he's half Vietnamese, half French, and he's working in the Vietnamese army, like the South Army, the one that was for the Americans, and it's just like a really interesting look at identity and like duality, because I like those kind of stories where like he's so deep undercover that he kind of loses track of who he is and like what he actually believes, or it's like deeper than what he believes. It's like the essence of like his being. He kind of like doesn't know who he is at all. And I will say, like, the first half of the book was a little slow for me, but the second half, like, really picks up, and it gets, by the end, it's, like, almost, like, psychological thriller-esque. It's really, really cool. And especially because, like, he was in, like, the division of the army that interrogated and, like, tortured communist agents, so that, like, adds a lot to his conflicting feelings, because, like, he had these people who he knew that he, like, were fellow revolutionaries, and that he agreed with, but to stay undercover, he like had to do awful things to them.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's like it's dark, but it's really, really good.
Is it translated from Vietnamese?
No, it's by an author who was born in Vietnam and is Vietnamese, but was raised in America. And he's a professor of English at USC, University of Southern California.
Cool.
It's super cool because like it starts right at the fall of Saigon, and then he becomes like a refugee in America. But like while he's in America, he's a spy still like the whole time, and so he gets like American identity plus the fact that even when he's at home in Vietnam, like people make fun of him for being half French, and then like he has to have this cover of hating communists, but he secretly like believes so deeply in the revolution. It's a very entertaining, like a lot of things clashing inside of him all at once.
Where did you hear about this book?
I saw it at my like favorite bookstore in Boston, and then didn't get it, and then saw it again when we were in Chicago, and just on a whim got it. The cover really like attracted me for some reason.
I feel like I was a part of that somehow, even though I wasn't there, because I was like there in Chicago.
That's true. I mean, honestly, when I bought it, I was thinking of you.
I was like a small thread in that story.
Yeah.
I just remember standing by your side and being like, you should get that book, Follow Your Heart.
And I did. And I enjoyed it so much.
Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah,
we should do a book swap when we see each other at Thanksgiving, although that's a terrible idea, because then I won't see my books for a year. Have you guys read, this is like not related except that it's a book, have you guys read The Martian?
No. I've seen the movie. Is it the same?
Man, it's the same, I think. I haven't seen the movie, but I read the book, making me much more superior than you. But it's a really good book. I think you would enjoy it, Ben. I really do.
Probably. I really like the movie.
Yeah, it's the plot's obviously interesting, but all the guy who wrote it is like a computer scientist and a hobby like astrophysicist, and so there's a lot of like technical stuff that's all apparently accurate, but it's not boring. It's like super duper interesting because the voice, the narrator's voice is so funny and like so good. I think y'all should read it.
Okay. I have not seen the movie. I just wanted to get that off my chest because it sounded like I said I liked it earlier, but
I've been thinking you've been liking this movie this whole time, Hannah.
Do you know what it's about?
Sorry.
Bed of Lies.
I know that he uses his poop for fertilizer.
Yes.
That's what it's all it's about.
Yeah. In the book, there are elaborate calculations about like how much fertilizer he'll need and like how to make it. It's really interesting. It's so cool. If one of you still hasn't read it by Thanksgiving, I have the book that I will give to one of you.
Wow.
You guys can fight to the death over it. Or you can tear it in half and one of you reads the first half, and that actually won't work either.
Oh my god, Hannah, do you remember Black Books?
That. Yes.
I would just rewatch that like a couple weeks ago.
What? The Notebook?
No, Black Books.
Black Books. Oh. What's that?
It's a British sitcom from like the early 2000s, maybe 1999. Like it's like pretty old by now, but it's about like an Irish guy who owns a bookstore, and then he got, I don't even know, like it's literally just about like him running a bookstore with this other dude.
Yeah,
except
it's
the
like
Irish guy is like
a
a belligerent drunk and like, what's the word? Someone that hates people. What was that word?
Oh, a misanthrope.
Misanthrope, yeah.
Yeah.
A misanthrope.
Yeah, and he's got, like, a little sidekick that works at the store with him and, like, lives there with him. And he's got, like, a neighbor who also runs a store and lives nearby. And they, like, and they all drink shitloads of red wine together in, like, every episode and play drunk, which is my favorite thing to watch.
He's also, like... He owns a store, but he hates customers and like hates selling books because then he has to buy more books. So like, he tries to like discourage people from. It's just really.
What's
funny.
this on?
Netflix, but it's only on Netflix until November 1st. So you gotta.
It's
watch
on
it
Netflix.
Now. Yeah, but it's not on for much longer.
I'm gonna watch that. Double obsession.
Yeah, shit. Double.
Way to double down. Oh, it's funny that you can double up and double down.
The reason I thought of it is that there was a scene where someone was like haggling a price and he agreed to the price and then like tore out half the book and was like, that's what this will get you.
All right, Hannah. Up
You're
to
up.
bat. Batter up.
So, mine is a stand-up special that just came out on Netflix this week.
Okay.
It's Patton Oswalt's new special. It's called Annihilation.
Oh, I've heard that's really good.
I've heard it's good.
Very good, and it's the very first time I've ever finished a Netflix special and immediately started uncontrollably crying.
Oh.
Like,
Does he
because
talk
you
about
guys
his wife
know... Yeah, you guys know what happened with his wife, right?
Yes.
I guess I probably should explain in case people on the who are listening don't know that Patton Oswalt is an extremely funny comedian who's been extremely funny for a long time. He was married to a woman who's like a true crime writer for a living, but not just a writer, like a researcher. She did like a lot of cold cases and like helped people find closure on you know, their loved ones' murders, basically, in a lot of cases, and wrote about it and sold those books and was like generally like a really cool person. They had a daughter together, and then
Out of
she was
nowhere,
fine one day, and then when he woke up the next day, she did not. Basically, it was like how it happened.
Yeah.
He retreated from public life for a while for very obvious reasons, and when he came back, the first thing that he did was like post this long thing on Facebook, which he's done in several situations before. Like he's done, you know, a lot of like really extremely well stated criticism of Trump and like other politicians using his Facebook platform and stuff, and stuff that's like really worthy of reading and sharing and stuff. When he came back after this, he wrote a big long thing about like, you know, where he'd been and why he'd been gone, and how it had been like adjusting and raising his daughter, and you know, he also has spoken openly in previous comedy specials about the fact that he struggles with depression, so like how that fits in. Like he kind of like talked about like all of that in a serious way, and then he, in this special, he took that stuff and turned it into like a lot of extremely emotionally confusing jokes. So like like
The best kind of joke.
yeah, like the first half was like some political stuff and some like just like regular, like nothing about that. And then he did it was kind of it's very good, but he does this like section in the middle where he does a bunch of crowd work, and then like when he's like exhausted his whole first row, he's finally like, yeah, sorry, I'm just killing time, it's really hard for me to get into this next part. And then from then on, the whole rest of it is about like is storytelling and jokes about that time of his life. And I cried a bunch during it, but like the thing that did surprise me was after it was over, and I was just sitting there on the couch. I was sitting next to Ian, and I was like, I think those types of things, for some reason, like make me actually think about like what's gonna happen when my own whatever dies. So in this case, like my own spouse, and I think I was like thinking about that, and like all these like thoughts about that, and like also thinking about like what it must have been like for him and everything. And like before I knew it, I was just like sitting there just like still crying as the credits rolled.
Oh my god.
And like we just like hugged each other on the couch, and I was like, what
And
is
I had
happening?
the exact same thing with The Notebook, because Alzheimer's scares the shit out of me from like an emotional standpoint. Like, I can't deal with the idea of like someone I've known and loved my whole life suddenly not remembering me, or vice versa. And so like, spoilers for The Notebook, but like, fuck you, we haven't seen it yet. And so, like, when it reveals that at the end, I was watching with Kylie, and I literally like sat there and cried for like a while, and then I would like, and then like half an hour after we watched it, I would like look at her and start thinking about it again, and then start crying again. And it like fucked me up for like a couple days thinking about Alzheimer's, because for some reason it like really, that in particular, more than like someone dying for some reason, scares me, because it's like they're still there with you, but they're gone and there's no chance of getting them back still.
Yeah.
You know, it's like really terrifying.
I actually don't think I've seen that movie all the way through.
Wow.
Like, when you said The
should.
Notebook, when you said Black Books before, I heard you say Notebook. So when you said The Notebook, I assumed I heard you say Notebook again, but you actually said something else.
I think it's
I heard
a good
Patton
movie.
Oswalt. Did you listen to? I feel like I reference the weekly episode of Comedy Bang Bang every week on this show, but this week's episode was really good because it was like a lost episode from last year, around when Patton Oswalt was releasing his last stand-up special, but they didn't release it because they recorded it like a couple days before his wife died.
Oh, man.
And so they released it to promote this special, and it's one of the funniest I think I've ever heard. He's so funny on it, and he and Scott Aukerman are like really close friends, so they just like jive well together. And Drew Tarver's on it, who's another really amazing improviser. So I highly recommend that as well.
Nice. I haven't listened to that show.
It's so good. It's my favorite
It's very funny.
air snack.
I just don't have the time to listen to all the podcasts I want to listen to. I tried listening to a podcast while I worked today, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I have trouble with that too.
I don't.
I have to like listen to, the only one I like really make time for every week is Comedy Bang Bang, and I usually like do it while I'm doing dishes, kind of piecewise, because otherwise I don't really have time to listen to much.
I make time for way too broad.
I make time to record it.
I was listening to our last episode today. I'll cop to that.
I listen to our episode every week.
I do too, but I was listening to it again today.
Oh, okay. Our last one was pretty fucking good. I don't blame
It
you.
was good.
Shout out to us. Shout out to us.
Rachel. Shout out to Rachel.
Shout out to Rachel.
Seriously.
Shout out to us listening to this in the future. What's up? What's up, Sunday, Erin? Hope you're
Is
having
that
a good one.
shout out or is that a shout in? I don't even know.
Well, it's a
anymore.
shout out. It was a shout in to us, like, in real time last time. And I'm
Okay.
shouting out to us in the future listening to this as listeners.
Okay, alright.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Good question.
Seriously, though, in all seriousness, Rachel has been, like, brightening up my whole week. It's not been, like, a fun week in every way, but it's been so fun, like, getting these texts from Rachel, so
Yeah, it's been pretty great.
thank you.
Do you want to clarify that in case we add that portion to the snack? Our cousin
What, you mean, like, who's Rachel?
and
Who's
why
Rachel and
what
why
she's
did she
been
brighten
doing.
your week?
Sure. Rachel's our other cousin. One of our other cousins.
We have so many cousins.
Legitimately, like, 20 cousins.
Yeah.
And she lives out in the Midwest area, so we don't see her as much as we see each other. But we love her and always enjoy her when we see her. And it turns out she enjoys us too, because she listened to our whole podcast this week and texted us like
Real time
reactions.
It was so great. It was so great.
It's literally the best.
I was also texting Hannah real-time Westworld reactions, and she was like,
Yeah.
keep texting me these always, ever, forever.
That was fun. Is there anything else before we get to homework that anybody wanted to do or say? I suppose say would be better because it's an audio media.
I'm so proud of my cat.
What'd your cat do?
You know how there's that thing where like some cats are bush cats, some cats are tree cats?
Yeah.
No.
He's a
What?
tree
So
dweller.
like some cats prefer to like climb up into really high places, and those are called tree cats, and some cats like to like hide kind of on ground level but like in corners of rooms and like behind stuff, and those
Gotcha.
are bush cats. And Como has very much developed into a tree cat because just this week he learned he can climb onto the fridge, and then from there he learned he could climb all the way to like on top of the cabinets in our kitchen. So he just keeps like finding the highest point.
What a
And for some
smarty.
reason, that makes me really proud of him.
Because he's dusting.
Yeah, he's a duster.
Great job, Jack. Fucking, please make all the noise.
I'm proud of Jack too, but I'm more proud of Como.
Jack
Way
is
to
a
go,
bush
Como.
dweller. Hardcore bush dweller. He's about to fall off this table right now.
This is where I make a lesbian joke about being a bush dweller. Should I roll into homework?
Roll it in.
Yeah.
My homework this week is to listen to Venice, and here's what I'll say. If you're somebody who's, like, really into musicals and who's like, I'm probably going to give this 2 songs before I decide to listen to the rest of it, then I would tell you, listen to the first 2 songs in order. If you're somebody who's like, I'm probably only going to listen to 1 song, listen to the second song, which is Last Man. The first song is good. It's got a lot going on. It's a really good, I feel like, representation of the musical in its entirety, as in, like, the first part is, like, really good, and you're like, what the fuck is this? This is so great. And then in the middle, it's like, oh, okay, this is fine. And then it's kind of long, and you kind of, like, stop paying attention. So...
Wow, you're really selling it.
But no, it's good. This is what I'm saying. If I had listened to this before Hamilton, I would have been like, stop everything.
Yeah.
Like, cue this
Yeah,
up.
no, I totally get that.
But I'm like, this is good. It's good. It's really
is.
good.
It's good.
So anyway, that's mine. And my Twitter handle is @EarnBurn, and you can follow my lesbian movie reviews, which I have not posted in just so long.
But you're gonna triple up next week.
Well, my wife's going out of town for like 5 days, so you're going to get 5 reviews.
But they're all gonna be kissing Jessica Stein, though.
Oh, that's
According to
true.
you.
Just gonna review that movie over and over again.
Yeah, not a lesbian movie. It's got a lesbian theme in it. But you can follow that Instagram account @lesbianmoviereviews.
Good to it.
Alright. My homework is to read The Sympathizer by Viet, Thanh, Nguyen. It's
Okay.
3 names.
Can you spell
Viet,
that name out for everybody?
Yeah. Viet is Viet, then space THANH, Thanh or
Oh.
Thanh, I think, space NGUYEN.
Okay.
Chill.
And also follow my Twitter @NEDiscoGreg for daily pictures and videos of my adorable cat.
Come on.
He's what is he?
Beautiful,
cat?
cute, soft,
Elegant.
black.
What's the word that Rachel came up with?
Oh, adornable.
Adornoble.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's adorable and noble.
Yeah. Very good. Very good word.
Very good cat.
Very good cat. Very good word. My homework is to watch Annihilation, which is Patton Oswalt's new stand-up special on Netflix. And bring your tissues. My Twitter handle is Anthropology, which is anthropology with an H at the beginning of it, but anthropology like the study of people and not like the store. Because they spell it differently for the store. It's got an IE at the
You
end.
should really time if it's better to just spell it than to say that.
No, I'll just change my Twitter
Now
handle.
it's a thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Now I just change my Twitter handle. Then anthropology will win.
The Ear Snack Twitter is @2broadpod, as in a pod of narwhals. The Ear Snack email, if you want to write to us your real-time reactions to listening to our show, you can email us at waytoobroad@gmail.com. And also, if you're enjoying this, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes and tell everybody you like us. We're fun.
Can we mention real quick before we sign off that our cousin Rachel also thought that narwhals were not real before she listened to that episode?
Yes.
And how amazing that is.
It's amazing.
It wasn't even like she thought they were a hoax like Erin did. Like, she thought that they were not real.
Yeah.
She assumed that they were not real, which is great. This is what I'm on about.
Kind of contributes to the Mandela effect theory.
Well, no, they never existed.
In no timeline.
There's no universe where they're real.
Are you saying then that there's no universe in which unicorns are real?
Yeah.
Well,
No, there's not.
That's just a dark thought.
I'm sorry. You don't believe in fucking ghosts. How are you going to believe in unicorns is all I'm saying.
I believe that there could be a universe where ghosts are real.
You think there are other universes?
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, there are, I think.
Peer pressure. We peer pressure into believing it.
I mean, yeah, obviously I do too, but like, imagine if you guys did.
So, also just to mention, next week will be our big Halloween special, I believe. Or no, is it 2 weeks?
No, it's next week.
It's next week.
Yeah, sweet.
Comes out the day before Halloween, I believe.
It's gonna
Way too spooky. What's it called?
I don't remember.
I think that's right. I think it's way too...
Definitely way too...
Scared.
Something.
Scary or spooky? We'll know by the time we do it, I hope.
It's gonna be there's gonna be so many people, it's gonna be really fun or unlistenable. It's gonna be one of those.
One of those.
For sure. So look forward to that.
We're going to have a couple ghosts and a couple zombies on.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're not going to be able to hear the ghosts, and the zombies are not going to be able to speak English.
Just trust us.
It's going to be great.
Just believe us.
Wear your Halloween costume and tune in, narwhals.
Okay, bye, narwhals.